Good evening, Patriots. Thank you for joining me tonight. You had many places you could be, but you chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you very, very much. Little update. Besides YouTube, we are now officially going out live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and finally on Rumble tonight. Something we've been trying to do for a couple of years now is get the live stream through StreamYard to go on the Rumble. And it's been one problem after another, but it appears tonight that we finally have got that ironed out. And Rumble has worked with me to make it happen. So those of you that join us on Rumble tonight, thank you very much for being there. Eventually, we're going to move this whole show over to Rumble and be done with this Google run far left liberal site called YouTube. Let the liberals take it and run with it. Every year on February 6th, Americans get to celebrate anew the birth of its 40th president, Ronald Reagan, who was born on February 6, 1911. We remember and revere him not just because of his service to our nation, but for how he made us feel when he was the president. We were patriotic then. We were proud Americans and powerful under Reagan's presidency. All traits we seem currently to be lacking, and sadly for a long time. Americans love to remember Reagan because they love to call the feeling they had when he was president bold, unapologetic. On the world stage, he advocated for freedom in places which could never have been imagined. He was responsible for the Berlin Wall coming down. Domestically, he encouraged innovation, investing, advancing, and increasing. Under Reagan, success was attainable, and he was facilitated, not punished by the government. When we revisit Reagan's words and his legacy, we find his endless treasure trove of wisdom and surprise. An audio interview recorded 8 months before Ronald Reagan became president of the United States. It reflected a sentiment that prevails today. On April 30th, 1979, Ronald Reagan sat down with Bill Maher of PBS, who asked him, "Somebody describe Reagan country as a land of well-kept lawns and chamber of commerce, a town square, and a nice place to raise your kids and have a barbecue. Do you think that Reagan country, that part of America, sees and understands the America of dirty streets and crime and poor people?" Leave it to PBS to ask that kind of a question. Reagan replied, "Yes, because most of them came from those areas of town." I have said that the difference between some of those people, myself, and people like myself, is that they have compassion for someone who is needy. Oh, yes, let's have a government program to help that person. We all have compassion for those people and the needy, but I also have compassion for those families out there in America today where the husband and wife are both working, not because she wants to have a career, but if they're going to pay the mortgage on the house this age and time, she has to. And if they're going to send their kids off to a good school, they both need to work. 50% of wives are now working, and all they ask is freedom themselves, Reagan said. And they're getting worse off, not better off. And I think there ought to be enough compassion for these people who are making the system of ours work. He said they're the backbone of America. And who the devil is passing programs for them? Yes, Ronald Reagan had a heart for the poor. He was raised in poverty. But he also had a heart for people of the hardworking middle class who were doing all they could in those times in need while still facing their own struggles to put food on the tables, clothe and educating their kids, keep a roof over their head, maybe buy a modest home, and try to save a bit for retirement. Their version of the American dream was not to have it all, but to have enough. Reagan wanted to help them move from needy to having. He saw those people too, not just the underprivileged. This is why middle America loved Ronald Reagan. He was equally their advocate, not just for the poor. Ronald Reagan believed that America belonged to all of us, and all of us should have an equal chance to benefit and be blessed by freedom of opportunity, not just the wealthy and the privileged. He wanted to help those who truly needed a safety net while not overwhelmingly adding that burden to their hardworking neighbors. See the difference? Likewise, today, many feel as if they are what Donald Trump called the forgotten man. Those who do their part, pay their taxes, and contribute positively to their communities, yet are forgotten, or worse, are targeted and penalized by the very government to which they are loyal. The Republican Party, more than ever, is still the party of Reagan, although that is fading fast. Advocating for opportunity and prosperity for every American, not just those at the top or at the bottom, but those in the middle too, was what Reagan did. This is not due to government interventions or handouts, but happens best when government gets out of the way. For Reagan, this was described as the same interview with Mars in his usual optimistic way. For the first time in man's history, we unleashed the individual genius of every man to climb as high and as far as his own ability will take him. We live in the future in America. We always have, and better days are yet to come. Ronald Reagan's words are timeless and worth revisiting and celebrating as we remember and honor his life. Individual genius of every man is indeed what makes America great and will continue to advance and secure America's future. To this very day, my friends, I still feel very, very blessed to have served under Ronald Reagan. He was not just the President of the United States, but he was my commander-in-chief. He was the most outstanding commander-in-chief that I ever served under in my military career. So to Ronald Reagan, happy birthday up there in the heavens. Please say hello to our good friend, country music legend Toby Keith, who also recently passed away yesterday. Sadly, he died at the age of 61 from stomach cancer that he's been battling with for the past, I believe it's been 2 years. Toby Keith continued to perform all the way up to the day before he died. He was an American patriot. He sang about patriotism in America. He also was one of the biggest advocates for our law enforcement officers as well as our military, where he went overseas, everywhere the troops were, every chance he got, probably over 100 times in the war zones. He's ridden on Chinook helicopters and Black Hawk helicopters, shook the hands of privates through generals in the combat zone on USO tours. Toby Keith is remembered today as a true American patriot. Please keep him as well as his family and friends in your thoughts and prayers. We lost a good one, but God gained his son. God gained back what he only lent us for a short period of time, and we should be very, very grateful for that. Breaking news tonight, as I told you on last Thursday's show, today the House would vote to impeach Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas for his blatant and systematic failures to secure our southern border. All the writing was on the wall. Everything needed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this man was derelict in his duties and intentionally went against the laws that are on the books. The Republican House of Representatives this evening failed to impeach him over his handling of the crisis at the southern border marking a blow, a major blow, for the House Republicans, who have pushed for Maracas' removal. The House voted mostly along party lines, but Republicans suffered a number of defections which torpedoed the vote, and that is pathetic. Democrats, as usual, remained in lock and step with each other, just like little Nazi soldiers. The vote was 214 to 216. The vote was on two articles of impeachment that accused Maracas of having refused to comply with federal immigration laws, and the other of having violated public trust, both of which he is very, very guilty of. A cabinet secretary has not been impeached since 1876, when Secretary of War William Buckner was impeached. Republicans accused Maracas of disregarding federal law with open border policies that have made the overgoing crisis at the southern border worse. They pointed to the rolling back of Trump-era policies like border wall construction and remain in Mexico, as well as reducing interior enforcement and expanding catch and release. They said it was fueled record numbers at the southern border, where numbers breached just in December, 2 months ago, 300,000 in that month. Under Secretary Maracas' watch, Customs and Border Protection has reported more than 8.5 million encounters at our border, including more than 7 million apprehensions at the southern border. Homeland Security Committee Chairman Mark Green said on the House floor today. Even more terrifying is the approximately 1.8 million known gotaways the Border Patrol was not able to apprehend, that Border Patrol agents detected but were unable to get to. Millions of those invisible aliens who are encountered are eventually released into our communities. This has never happened before in our history, and it doesn't happen by accident. Green said that Republicans have been left with no other option than to proceed. We, the people's representative, have no option but to exercise this duty when branch officials blatantly refuse to comply with the laws we have passed, threatening the separation of powers, imperiled the constitutional order, and exposed Americans to untold suffering and death. Democrats and the administration have painted the impeachment push as politically motivated on nothing more than political disagreements and nothing that approaches high crimes and misdemeanors. For Republicans, all House Democrats, and voting down what would have been impeachment, they are Representative Mike Gallagher of Wisconsin, Representative Ken Buck of Colorado, and Tom McClinton of California. They all voted against impeaching this man. Remember that when election time rolls around, and get rid of those four un-American, hateful humans that side with the Democrats, that are okay with massive amounts of fentanyl coming across our border, killing Americans by the hundreds of thousands. They're okay with the sex trafficking of women and children by the cartel, and even more drugs, such as heroin, coming across the border by the cartel. They're okay with MS-13 gang members and other gang members coming to America. And we know, without a doubt, the FBI, as well as the Department of Defense and the CIA, are on record saying that they know, no doubt about it, that have come across that border are terrorists from the Middle East waiting to strike and kill me or you. Yet, the man who was derelict in his duties and was proven time and time again, if you have ever watched a single hearing that was held in Congress with that no good son of a bitch, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, If you're a Democrat or a liberal just tuning in tonight to troll the channel, please take the time tonight, right here on YouTube, for crying out loud, or you can see it on Rumble. Go and look up Alejandro Marcos when he is going about having his smirking grin and blatant lies to members of Congress when they're asking him point blank about his failures. A group of Senate Republicans is growing wary of state majority leader Mitch McConnell, because the Senate has Democrats have control of the Senate. Mitch McConnell's leadership, and called for him to step down as they aired the grievances over what they called a dead bipartisan border bill slated for the floor procedure vote tomorrow. Senators J.D. Vance, Republican of Ohio, and Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, told reporters this afternoon in a press conference that McConnell should have walked away from that border agreement, which they argue does not close the border, even though Biden says it will. I myself have called for him to step down many times. Mitch McConnell has no reason to still be in Congress. Anyone who is elderly in age, into their mid to late 80s, pushing 90, and it's blatantly obvious that there's a mental decline, should not be there. Nothing against those type of problems that we face. Most Americans will face that as we get older. But Mitch McConnell, in just the past year, several different times while talking in front of cameras, literally in mid-sentence, just stopped and froze and stared off into space, not able to say another sentence. And his staff had to come in and move him out of the way and stop the press conference because he's mentally not there. Just like, the guy occupying 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to go into a little bit of that here shortly. Continuing on, we're not committing ourselves to voting for this thing just because we entered the negotiations. And you hear this from some of our leadership, and hopefully they will stop. The idea that we committed supporting whatever came out of this negotiation is pure, unadulterated bullshit, said Vance, one of the Congress' loudest critics against Ukraine assistance as well. And you may remember that that's what this was all about, tying Ukrainian aid into this border bill. He added, "We support a negotiation to bring common sense border security to this country. We did not agree to a border fig leaf to send another $61 billion to Ukraine, which is what this would do." Senator Cruz, a staunch critic of McConnell since 2013, said the longstanding leader offered no response when he asked him point blank, "Is there anything that we're willing to do to fight?" regarding the closed-door border negotiations that began this past December with Mitch McConnell and the Democrats, which Republicans have now deemed and determined to end. And the House Speaker has already said it is dead on arrival when it reaches the House. Everyone here also supported a leadership challenge to Mitch McConnell in November, Cruz said. "I think a Republican leader should actually lead this conference and should advance the priorities of Republicans. I totally agree." Fox News Digital has reached out to McConnell's office for comment. Following the GOP luncheon that was held today, McConnell told reporters, "I think we can all agree that Senator Cruz is not a fan, and neither are the Republican people of America." Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma, the lead Republican negotiator, has been facing pushback from the caucus over the deal that he struck with Senators Chris Murphy, Democrat, Connecticut, and Kristen Sinema, Independent, Arizona, and Biden administrative officials. More than 20 Republicans have already voted to strike down the bill tomorrow when it gets to the House, arguing they need adequate time for amendments and further analysis of what it all says. Meanwhile, Republicans are also hanging on to a post Murphy posted on X, formerly Twitter, this past Sunday, after the text was released, which read, "The border never closes, but claims must be processed at the port." Cruz contended the Biden administration already has the ability to shut down the border and turn migrants away under the current immigration laws, which I've told you about time and time again right here on this show. That is 100% factual information, folks. But Biden's administration, along with the Senate and House Democrats, are telling the American people that he can't. And they are pathetic liars. Biden's first week as president, he halted construction of the border wall. He reinstated the disastrous policy of catch and release. And he pulled out of the unbelievable, successful Remain in Mexico agreement that caused this explosion we see today on the border. Joe Biden could solve it tomorrow by reversing just those 3 decisions that he made when he took over. Just allow Border Patrol to actually enforce the current laws already on the books will fix this problem. Senator Cruz said the only way the border bill would make it cross the finish line in the national supplemental package is if the Senate passes H.R. 2, the GOP-led House immigration bill passed last year, which includes Trump-era-style explosions and security measures. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat in New York, has already deemed the bill a non-starter in the Senate. Senator Rick Scott, Republican Florida, an unsuccessful contender against McConnell in the last election, said a few people negotiated the border when it should have been open to the entire GOP conference to offer amendments. No shit. McConnell decided we're not going to have something that forces a lawless administration to secure the border, and so this is where we are. Senator Ron Johnson, Republican, Wisconsin, another no vote today, told reporters that McConnell was fatally flawed when he entered into the secret negotiations with Schumer. It normalizes thousands of people a day, Johnson said, and it undermines the future president's ability to secure the border by having things like a discretionary threshold. Vance added that Lanford was at an advantage in the negotiations, or disadvantage, because the White House has more lawyers compared to the Republican senators' team. Republicans only had 1. So on one hand, you have the Democrat majority, you have the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, you have the army of lawyers that they have, Vance said. And on the other hand, the Republicans have James Lankford, his staff negotiating in secret. The idea that any person could negotiate successfully through a border security package that would have multiple loopholes in it is crazy. These guys have a massive advantage. It was a huge mistake. Other Republicans during Tuesday's press conference included Senators Roger Marshall of Kansas and Mike Lee of Utah, also spoke out against the bill that they say has a whole lot of loopholes. Loopholes through which you could drive a Mack truck, fly a 747 and an Airbus A380 at the same time through them, and that's concerning, said Lee, who were among the first to criticize the deal. Marshall defended Lankford and said not even Henry Kissinger could have negotiated a better deal with the cards that he was dealt. This is not on the back of James Lankford, he said. I'm not going to speak for James. I think his hope was that we could take this bill and amend it and make it better. But I'm afraid it's not close enough to do anything but stop the life support and pronounce it dead. The proposed legislation released on Sunday evening after months of negotiation, totals over $118 billion with 50,000 new visas. Biden's original request amounted to around $106 billion. On Tuesday, Biden said the border package doesn't address everything he would have liked, such as creating a path to citizenship for illegal immigrants who are already living in the U.S. However, he called it the toughest, fairest law that's ever been produced relating to the border. He said, I'm calling on Congress to pass this bill, get it to my desk immediately so I can sign it. But if the bill fails, every day between now and then, November, when we vote for president, the American people are going to know that the only reason the border is not secure, are you ready for this, folks? This is what Joe Biden said. It's not secure because of Donald Trump and his MAGA Republican friends. Republicans are concerned the bill does not flatly reduce the number of border crossings to zero. The bill's provision comes into effect when there is an average of 5,000 or more daily encounters with illegal immigrants over any 7-day period. And sometimes it's over 8,500 or more encounters in a single calendar day. The bill would earmark $20 billion to immigration enforcement, including the hiring of thousands of new officers to evaluate asylum claims, as well as hundreds of Border Patrol agents. That's what the Democrats are pushing out there. The Republicans are now trying to block. How dare them? And, so look, that's a plus, right? We can agree that those are good things. What's not a plus is that Biden and the Democrats don't want you to know. But I've read the bill, and I will share that with you, my personal beliefs, what Biden and his Democrats don't want you to know. In this bill, it states that the president, in the national interest of this country, can temporarily suspend the Border Emergency Authority. Biden may direct the Secretary of Homeland Security to suspend use of the Border Emergency Authority and allow him to overturn the bill completely. So that's why Biden wants it on his desk, because the Senate Republicans handed him exactly what he wants, to turn around and make it go away once it's been approved. You wouldn't know that by listening to the Democrats, though. Wouldn't know that at all. Sadly, it is unclear if the Army soldiers, the 3 that were recently killed, and those that were injured in the drone attack by an Iran-backed militia in Jordan, will be awarded the Purple Heart or even qualified to wear the combat patch. And this is a prime example, my friends, of our United States military going to shit right in front of our eyes. If you come out as a transsexual in the military, they will cover the cost of your transaction 100%. Get injured in combat? Well, let us think about it. All 3 soldiers killed in the strike were from the same Georgia Reserve unit, and at least 40 Army National Guardsmen and airmen were also injured. Just the latest in a growing tally of troops wounded aimed at increased violence in the Middle East. And trust me, it's going to get worse before it gets better. I said this last year, and sadly, it's come true, and it's going to continue coming true. Be prepared for more and more flag-draped coffins to return. Moving on, but the service is still mulling whether or not the soldiers are eligible for combat badges and Purple Hearts. The Pentagon says Jordan meets the criteria for locations in which troops are eligible for combat badges, but the Army says individual awards are considered on a case-by-case basis with approved authorities. On Tuesday of last week, Military.com reached out and asked the Pentagon's top spokesman, Major General Pat Ryder, whether the troops in Jordan qualified for these combat awards. But General Ryder said he didn't know and he would look into it. And folks, that's the wrong fucking answer. And you know that, General. You need to look into it? Really? I have two things to say to you as a United States Army combat veteran myself of 4 wars. Number one, yes, they do qualify. I've read the regulations and I know what they say. And number two, your ass should be dishonorably discharged for that no merit response. If you don't know that they qualify for the Purple Heart and they qualify to wear combat badges when they come out, then you shouldn't even be. How did you even get to the rank of general to start with? And if you don't know, then why the hell are you even, why are you a general then? Either way, you lose. And here we are a week later, and General Ryder, nor anyone in his office or the Pentagon have answered that question to militarynews.com or the Army Times. The policy for what does or does not qualify for combat awards was just updated a few weeks ago in January. That's interesting. Why would you do that? Why? It's pretty freaking simple. If you're deployed to a combat zone, you're awarded the combat patch to wear for the remainder of your career. If you're injured by the enemy in the combat zone, you're awarded the Purple Heart. That's how this works, General. The update notes the engagement that caused the injury or death must be ground combat, but doesn't include a clear definition of what ground combat means, or whether aerial attacks count. And the troops were on the ground and the Iranian drone was flying in the air when it exploded and killed them and injured the others. It's like the fucking Twilight Zone or something. How did we get there with our military? Did we have this blatant stupidity in charge? Not to mention the commander-in-chief. It also notes that soldiers must be executing an offensive or defensive act, but it does not outline what that means. Well, let's see. They're there in an offensive matter, and the drone attack puts them in a defensive situation. Think that cleared it up. So basically, how can we word this long-standing policy so that we can screw over the troops? That's basically what they did in January. I know in the past, soldiers must receive imminent danger pay or hostile pay, which the troops call combat pay, a bonus of up to $225 per month for service members serving in an area where enemy combat is possible. And guess what, General Ryder? All bases in Jordan where troops were stationed are receiving combat pay. They are considered in a combat zone, and they were attacked by an enemy. Meanwhile, more than 100 U.S. military troops have been injured in attacks by Iranian proxy groups in Iraq and Syria since Israel launched a war against Hamas in October last year, following a surprise attack on Israeli citizens. 2 months after the attack, military.com reported that just 5 Purple Hearts have been awarded. Since then, military.com has repeatedly asked the Pentagon and U.S. Central Command for an update total, but the Army and the Pentagon declined to comment. Military officials have made remarks that seem to downplay the severity of our troops who have sustained brain injuries, for instance, aka TBI, traumatic brain injury, which studies and evidence show can lurk in the shadows but lead to increased risk of illness, such as migraine headaches, blurred vision, dementia, Alzheimer's, and then eventually, in some cases, suicide. John Kirby, the spokesperson for the White House National Security Council, told ABC's Good Morning America in late January, after an attack, that troops were being seen for traumatic brain injuries with some symptoms of concussions, but said, and I quote, "No serious physical injuries other than that." In years past, awards have sometimes been kept from injured troops when officials dismiss the severity of the wounds. One senior defense official said that while most of the injuries were from concussion events, they were not necessarily what they consider wounds. It wouldn't be the first time the Pentagon has not taken TBI seriously. Military.com has reported that the struggle to recognize the condition goes back to the earliest years of the global war on terror, and that has cost many troops their lives. Now, I would love to tell you right now that this is 100% the results of Joe Biden as commander-in-chief. But if I did, that would be a lie. As recent as 2020, then President Donald Trump downplayed TBIs after an Iranian missile barrage against Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq that eventually led to 109 troops being diagnosed with traumatic brain injuries. Trump told reporters when asked about those troops that were injured in Iraq, and I quote, "I heard that they had headaches and a couple of other things, but I would say, and I can report, that it's not very serious." Not very serious, he repeated. Trump's dismissal of traumatic brain injuries and our military troops led to a 2-year delay in the National Guard receiving Purple Hearts. As someone who has a TBI, me, I can assure you that it can be very debilitating and affect not only your health, but relationships with family and friends. And our military can't figure out why recruitment is lower today than at any time since the draft ended. As I've said many times before, one of the qualifications to being president, aka the commander-in-chief of the United States military, should be that you served honorably in the United States military. It's like, I don't know, hiring somebody to be the president of United Airlines and they're not a pilot, or they've never worked in the aviation industry, or they don't know shit about airplanes, or the chief medical doctor for surgeons in America that's not a doctor, doesn't know anything about surgery. See the point I'm getting at? Joe Biden is mentally unfit to be president of the United States. We see and hear that from his own mouth every single day that he talks, with him saying things that are 100% not true. Now, the left and the Democrats will say, oh, Trump told 10,000 lies. Trump told 30,000 lies. Trump told 50,000. I don't know where they get these numbers from. All politicians tell lies, okay? Find me one that hadn't told some kind of fib about something. I'm not defending Donald Trump for that. What I'm saying is this guy, Joe Biden, his lies are based on his mental capacity of whatever's happening in his brain that's not functioning properly. And you guys and girls need to realize this and admit it, because allowing him to continue is elder abuse, period. Joe Biden saying things such as his son died while serving in Iraq. His son died in America of brain cancer. Saying that he marched with blacks during the civil rights movement. He did not. Saying he attended an all-black church, but the church says Biden never attended their services. Claimed he was once a bus driver and even a train engineer. He was neither. Claiming he visited Afghanistan and Iraq during the wars over 50 times. He did not. Then there's a time he delivered remarks at the White House Conference on Food, Nutrition, and Health, calling out for Representative Jackie Waltz-Lick, who had died in a car crash the month prior. Jackie, are you here? Jackie, where's Jackie? As he looked out and scanned the audience. A month prior, right after her death, he took to Twitter and issued the following statement: sorrow for her death, and saying he appreciated her partnership as we plan for a historic White House conference on hunger, nutrition, and health this fall that will be marked by her deep care and needs for rural America. So he knew that she was dead, but he didn't at the time because his brain is not working properly. And now, as if that wasn't enough, and it's never enough for Democrats and liberals to realize the man has a serious mental problem. Now he talks to dead people. That is correct. I will repeat that. The current guy occupying 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, aka the President of the United States, talks to dead people. Biden told a crowd in Las Vegas Sunday that he recently met with and spoke with Francisco Mitterrand, the French president, who, by the way, has been dead for 30 damn years. The comments came while Biden was warning of the dangers of a potential second Trump presidency, as he aimed to shore up enthusiasm ahead of today's Democrat primary in Nevada. Biden recounted the story he has told many times during his presidency about a meeting he had with French President Emmanuel Macron during a G7 meeting in England, some months after Biden taken over the White House. I sat down and I said, "America's back." And Richard from France, looked at me and said, and Biden appeared to just trail off into space before collecting his thoughts to finish the sentence. "Well, how long are you back for?" The president continued, saying the Chancellor of Germany asked him how he, and by extension, the U.S., would respond if, hypothetically, thousands of people stormed Britain's House of Commons and killed two bobbies, or British police officers, to stop the election of a prime minister. Francis Mitterrand was France's president between 1981 and 1995. And again, he died in 1996. So Joe Biden has an ability that the rest of us don't have. He can talk to dead people. It really is elder abuse. I don't know what the answer is because I don't want Kamala Harris in there, that laughing hyena. She's completely clueless about everything happening around her and what's happening in this country. Zero leadership capability to do anything. But Joe Biden's handlers are allowing this guy to come out and tell people that he just sat down and met with somebody that's been dead for 30 years, come out and tell people that his son, Beau Biden, died serving in Iraq when he didn't, and all the other things he says that just are not factual. Someone that the far left and Democrats seem to love, Dr. Phil McGraw, talked about his recent trip to the southern border in Texas on Monday night's Hannity and why Border Patrol agents are frustrated with Biden's administration's handling of the illegal immigration crisis. Now, the left is going to turn off his show because this goes against their narrative, what I'm fixing to share with you. The former daytime talk show host said he wanted to get a better picture of what was really going on at the border from law enforcement officials who were working to quell the historic surge of migrants. Border agents told him there are at least 13 to 14 million people who've entered this country since President Biden came into office. You heard me right, because you already know that's not what the administration's saying. The agents told him 13 to 14 million people have entered the country since Biden came to office, more than double what this administration has claimed. We hear the number 6 million people have come across under the current administration. Well, I talked to the experts down there that say that number is a myth, and it's closer to 13 to 14 million who have come across, Dr. Phil said. I asked them straight up, what is it you need here? I was shocked to hear them say, we don't need more money. We don't need more resources. We don't need more officers. We don't need more legislation. We just need the laws that are currently on the books followed and allow us to implement them. We need to be allowed to do our job, and we can get this under control immediately. Border agents told him they could get the crisis under control almost overnight if they were allowed to do their job. But Maracas won't let them. Joe Biden won't let them. The Department of Justice won't let them. America should be concerned about the influx of migrants coming across the southern border, illegally from China, from the Middle East, and even Russia, Dr. Phil said. It's incredibly narcissistic to think these people are coming across our southern border just because they're in the neighborhood, he said. They're coming in here with an agenda. The number of Chinese migrants crossing the southern border has soared from an estimated 1,100 between 2010 and 2020 to 33,000 in the first 11 months of 2023, McGraw said. Many of these migrants are military-aged men, yet no one is monitoring them to see where they're going or what they're doing in the United States. I promise you, they're expected to do certain things. Are they spying? Are they sending back information from farming to China? Are they getting plans in the industries that they're working in? Who knows what they're doing? And we need to know, he said. Dr. Phil argued he was pro-immigration from the current administration's policy. We're not working to keep our country safe. Biden's agents, border agents, are not trying to close the border, but simply want to vet who is trying to enter the country, he said. We have the right to know that, to control who's coming into this country. As I said, you don't reward bad behavior. You don't subsidize things you don't want to see more of. But that's what's happening, Dr. Phil explained. The most shocking discovery from his trip was learning about the different treatment migrants expect from state visas, federal law enforcement versus state. Let me back that up. The most shocking discovery from his trip was learning about the different treatment migrants expect from state versus federal law enforcement. if they run into a brown uniformed border guard with the Department of Texas Public Safety, they get arrested. They get to go to jail, and they get to return back where they came from, Dr. Phil said. But if they run into a green uniformed federal agent, they get money and a court date 7 to 10 years down the road, and they get released into the country. So you see these groups coming across, and if they see a brown uniform, they hide. If they see a green uniform, they run towards it. That, to me, is just insane that we have that kind of difference going on down there with the guys working side by side. It's very sad that this government, under this administration, just doesn't care. The city of Dearborn, Michigan is ramping up security after the publication of a controversial Wall Street Journal opt-in dubbed it the Jihad Capital of America. Dearborn is home to the highest concentration of Muslim residents in the United States. The piece, authored by Stephen Stansley, executive director of the Middle East Media Research Institute, highlights mass support for Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran amongst its city residents. He described protests in the city shouting infidelity, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and America is a terrorist state. The piece also alleges that people were celebrating Hamas' October 7th attack on Israel that left 1,200 dead and hundreds more injured. These celebrations, the author noted, came before Israel retaliated with a ground offense that was resulted in the deaths now of thousands of other people in Gaza and Palestine. Dearborn Mayor Abdul Hamada, a Muslim, on Friday tweeted that city police increased security at places of worship and major infrastructure points as a direct result of the Wall Street Journal's opt-in opinion piece. He posted on an X platform, formerly known as Twitter. The item published Friday led to an alarming increase in bigotry and Islamophobic rhetoric online targeting the city of Dearborn. It's 2024, and the Wall Street Journal still pushes this type of garbage, he said. It's reckless and it's bigoted, Islamophobic. Dearborn is one of the greatest cities in our nation, he said. Stansley, Associated Press, said that the piece was not intended to incite any sort of hate, but that it wanted to draw attention to protests in Michigan and elsewhere across the U.S. in which people have expressed support for Hamas terrorists since the start of the war with Israel. This is a moment for counterterrorism officials to be concerned, he said. In a tweet referencing Dearborn on Saturday, President Joe Biden condemned all hate in all forms. Americans know that blaming a group of people based on the words of a small few is wrong, Biden post read. That's exactly what can lead to Islamophobic and anti-Arabic hate. It shouldn't happen to the residents of Dearborn or any American town, he said. Joe, neither should MS-13 gang members, cartel drug smugglers, and sex trafficking of women and children be allowed in any American town. But you, sir, are as guilty as anyone ever in the history of America to allow that to happen. A female former competitive boxer is slamming one of the sport's top governing bodies over a decision to allow biological males to fight against women in the ring, warning that it will result in women getting hurt and opportunities being taken away from female boxers. When I heard that they were allowing transgender people to box women, I could not believe it. Carrie Williams, a former female competitive boxer and Olympian-level boxing coach, told Fox News Digital this week. I know it's been going on in a lot of sports, and it's not right at any level. But when you're talking about people punching each other in the face, in the body, in the head, I was really surprised. Earlier this year, USA Boxing announced a fighter who transitioned from male to female can compete in the female category under several conditions spelled out in the rule book that involve what the fighter identifies as, hormone levels, and the completion of gender surgery. So if you're taking hormones and you had your penis cut off, and you identify as a woman, you can get in the ring and box women. Or MMA, that'll be next. Williams told Fox News Digital this move will result in girls and women being severely hammered in the ring, and told a story about when she was a 30-year-old fighter sparring with a 16-year-old male to prepare for a fight. She experienced firsthand the physical and biological differences between male and females. I was preparing for a fight, and at the time, there were a lot of teenage boys on the boxing team at the gym. So I sparred with a lot of teenage boys. And there wasn't as many women boxing the sport around that time. So I was sparring with a 16-year-old boy. And you know, they all still went light on me, Williams explained. Even though they were boys, they still went light on me. And he flicked and a body shot and fractured one of my ribs. It was a hairline, but it hurt like hell. He didn't mean to do it. I just thought, wow, the power behind a teenage boy. I couldn't imagine, being hit by a grown man. So yeah, that experience, it takes me to this whole new level of thought, thinking that they're really going to allow men to go in there and box with women. That is just deadly, Williams said, as she never thought in a million years she'd one day be talking about men being allowed to fight against women. We're living in crazy times right now, she said. There's just no way that a man should be able to come into the boxing ring and box with a woman. No matter what, they were born a man, then they're a man. Doesn't matter if they've gone through transition. I think most of the people that I have commented with feel the same way. But a lot are worried to speak out. We live in a weird cancel culture. And so I think a lot of people don't want to voice their opinions on it, which is really sad because we need more people to stand up to this. Williams says she's been racking my brain to understand why USA Boxing made this decision, despite the Association of Ringside Physicians issuing a statement opposing transgender females in boxing based on science. Well, there you go, my friends. That's how crazy this shit is becoming. I completely expect to see it happening next in MMA, where they have women competing and men competing. And men that want to claim to be a female can go in and fight against women. They do it in the Olympics on swimming and other sports. Now they're doing it in boxing. It's sad. It's pathetic what is happening to this country. We need real leaders. We need real men to step up and take back this country from these far left ideological idiots that are destroying everything. Folks, you had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you very much. In the description of this, when it goes up as a regular video, and all my videos and all my live shows, you can see where you can follow me on all the different social media sites I'm on. Follow me there. I'll follow you back. That's how this works. That's how we spread the information. Please subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends and family about it. Make sure if they have kids, you let them know that I say a few bad words every now and then because it's what happens when you're an alpha male. And you've been through the experiences I have in life, you don't quite give a shit anymore. And we need more people like that to stand up and say political correctness is what's destroying this country. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving in the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders and their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families, and our country. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless each and every one of you. I'll see you right back here on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central. Something breaks between now and then. I'll do a video about it or do a live show about it. Other than that, have a blessed day tomorrow, blessed night tonight, and I'll see you Thursday. Good night, everyone.